All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. Happy Feast of Purim. Yes, indeed, it is Ya'akasaki Yahu, giving all praises, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahushua, Hamashiach, Wamalak, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered to the four quarters of the earth, I say shalom wa baruki. That is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait to the day when the Most High brings us back together and we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation, under the Most High power, under one covenant, back in our own land with a heart of flesh and no more a heart of stone, with our enemies, our adversaries, and all those who hate us under our feet. Hallelujah.
So be it. Hallelujah.
Yes, indeed. This evening I'm joined once again by my most esteemed Kenaniah. Shalom, Aki.
Shalom, Aki. Shalom, Yasharal. Happy feast day. Kwam Yasharala.
Quam. Rise Yisrael. Yes, indeed. It is indeed the we use this time, these days, to pay homage to, first of all, our power, Yahweh, the Most High
That's
power
right.
of Israel, Bashem, in the name of Hamashiach, the Messiah, Yahushua, Wamalak, and King, and to our ancestors, in this case, the elder Yehudis Maccabees, the elder Simon Maccabees, um, and who was it that took Nicodemus?
You had a brother, Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan as well. The Maccabee brothers, those brothers, the Hasmonean dynasty. You know, those brothers who did marvelous work and through the Most High and setting the children of Israel free during the time of Nicanor, the Greeks, and all the wickedness that they brought into the land of Israel, Yasha'Allah. The Most High used these brothers to deliver Israel. Praises to the Abba, and big up to those elders who paved that way. Celebration of the wickedness, of the destruction of the wickedness, of the destruction of the wickedness from the land of Israel by the hand of the heathen. So we're gonna go ahead. We got a couple of videos. One to accent or to highlight the feast of Purim. Slaki, look, I'm crossing my lines, like my bad. The feast of Purim. This is actually Mordecai, who was also our elder of the tribe of Yehuda during the time of the Persian captivity.
Yeah,
And that wicked Haman, who sought to destroy not only Mordecai, but all of the Yahudim. He wanted us all done away and went to the king to make it so. But our power, Yahweh, delivered Israel, Yehuda, Yasha'Allah, from the wicked hand of Haman, and the idea that Haman had to go against the Yahudim actually ended up falling on his own head. So
that's right.
we're gonna go ahead and get to it. All praises. So I was talking about before the destruction of Nicanor. That was actually last night, and we should have made a quick video for that last night, but we're just gonna recognize that tonight because again, this is the Abba destroying our enemies for our sake. We'll get to this video. This comes to us from our dear elder, current elder and brother, Benaiah Ben Israel. I got the link in the description box as always. This video is titled ESTHER. It highlights the Feast of Purim and what led us to that particular point. So, you got anything to add? Okay, we good. All right, let's get to it. Here we go.
Shalom, shalom, Israel. It's your brother Benaiah ben Israel, coming to you with a short lesson on Purim, deliverance of Israel. That's Purim, the deliverance of Israel. Now, if you're not familiar with Purim, let me give a brief overview before we get started. So, no, Purim is not an official holy day commanded by the Most High Yahuwah to observe, nor is it found in the book of Leviticus or Numbers. However, it is a day set aside for remembrance established by our forefathers, commemorating the deliverance of Israel from none other than the hand of Esau. AKA Haman, the Agite, son of Amalek, son of Eliphaz, and Timnah, the Horite. Daughter of Seir, the Horite. Family, most high willing, we will have an in-depth lesson on the Horites coming soon, which will explain what's going on in Ukraine, as well as reveal the sons of perdition. However, that's a story for another day. So for this lesson, on the other hand, we will review the celebration of Purim and why this is in fact a day of celebration for so-called Negroes. Yes, family, Negroes, established for centuries, which we will prove momentarily. And for so-called African Americans, this is in fact a day established by your forefathers, not spiritual forefathers, by your literal forefathers, which is why going forward we should honor this feast day with family and friends. And with that, family, let's get started. To begin our journey, we need to first paint the portrait of the house of Judah before and during the time of Esther. You see, Aunt Esther lived in Persia, in the land of which the house of Judah was carried away captive by the king of Babylon, which was later conquered by Persia. That is, the Persian kingdom in which Aunt Esther lived around 479 BC. However, when we look back at history, before the time of the Persian Empire and before the time of the Babylonian Empire, we arrive at the time of the Persian Empire, which laid siege to the cities of Judah, which included the city of Lachish. And after breaking the walls of Lachish and ransacking the city, the Assyrian army would return home and commemorate their victory at Lachish by chiseling a snapshot of both the Persians and the nappy-headed sons of Judah. And these unmistakable, prominent Negroid features are on display today at the British Museum. And available online for anyone to see and confirm that Israel was indeed a Negroid people. The stone monument dates back to around 681 BC, which was before the time of the Babylonian Empire. And with that, let's take a look at how we can view and confirm the Black Israelites etched in stone in the Lachish relief. We begin by typing the words British Museum, Lachish Relief in the search bar. Then next, scroll down and select the first British Museum link. And then make sure you're on museum number 124-911. That's 124-911. And then once you're on the page, you can view the Israelites by navigating to the bottom of the page and locating the tiles at the bottom of the page. And then select the fourth tile from the left. That's the fourth tile from the left. And you can find the Israelites on the page by locating the prisoners on the page with beards. With their hands raised or laying prostrate before the king. And you can notice the prominent, nappy, woolly hair of the Israelites. This is just one confirmation that the Israelites were and are a Negroid people. Did you know that researchers in Israel refuse to publish DNA data regarding ancient DNA samples taken specifically from the territory of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi? Any guesses why that is? They publish samples from northern Israel, but refuse to publish samples from southern Judea. Why is that? Perhaps it's the blood of the ancient Negro, which matches your blood, that they're afraid of. However, even though Judean DNA isn't available, we do have the skulls from the ancient city of Judea called Lachish, in which all the skulls were identified as Egypto-Nubian, aka Negro skulls. As the following reference reads, it reads, Archaeology and Forensic Anthropology, the 701 BCE time capsule of Lachish. And it reads, no ancient Judean DNA samples have ever been formally published. But we do have a time capsule of data from 701 BCE found at the Judean city of Lachish in the form of a mass grave that was excavated there. And the next reference reads, the first report on the Lachish skulls included a thorough examination of pathology, metrics, artificial deformation, and epigenetic affinity. Utilizing craniometrics, Risden concluded that the group was fairly similar to dynastic Egyptian material. In fact, he stated that the entire population was of foreign origin, representing descendants of a group derived primarily from Upper Egypt. Skipping ahead, he concluded that the group was fairly heterogeneous, having close relationships to North African, Egyptian, and Nubian groups, thus lending support to an Egypto-Nubian presence. Researchers at first appeared to be confused with all the black folks in the city of Judah, declaring them a population of foreigners. However, researchers later confirmed that these were not foreigners at all. They were in fact native to the land of Judah. As the next reference reads, one of the first to oppose the idea of an Egyptian origin was Keith, who felt that the Lachish inhabitants were markedly different from Egyptians. Though his analysis was rather anecdotal, Others have since concurred, arguing that the people of Lachish were indigenous, closely related to pre-Middle Bronze Age skeletons in Palestine and the modern-day Bedouin. Now that we've established the blackness of Israel, according to the British Museum and cranial analysis, we can now take a closer look at Israel's Babylonian captivity with greater accuracy. Let's begin by reviewing the genealogy of a descendant of Jeconiah, who was led into captivity in Babylon and eventually into Spain and Portugal. And once there, he changed his name to Negro. According to the following genealogy, some of the sons of King David were taken into captivity into Babylon, while others were taken into Spain. Now, this particular record details a son of King Jeconiah taken into Babylon, whose descendant, Zerubbabel, would later leave Babylon and eventually make his way into Spain with the other sons of King David. And once in Spain and Portugal, some of the descendants of King Jeconiah, king of Judah, renamed themselves Negro, as the following reference reads. It reads, Yaya, a Portuguese family of the Middle Ages, members of which were prominent in Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Turkey. Certain individuals of the family bore the additional cognomen Negro, with reference to the Moors from whom several of their estates had been obtained. The more prominent members of the family are as follows. Now, according to this genealogy record, these Negroes moved from Spain to Portugal to Turkey and then to Poland. That's Spain, Portugal, Turkey, Poland. Spain, Portugal, Turkey, Poland. In other words, the descendants of these refugees today would match ancient DNA extracted from Spain, Portugal, Turkey, Poland. And with that in mind, let's take a look at ancient DNA matches of the so-called Negro today. And for this example, let's take a look at my DNA matches in mytrueancestry.com. And here you'll notice ancient DNA matches in Spain, Portugal, Turkey, Poland. That's Spain, Portugal, Turkey, and Poland. Identical to the genealogy listed for the sons of the Negroes, the descendants of Jeconiah. Not only that, we can also find DNA matches identical to the profile of the Bavarian Jews, who have matches in Hungary, Bavaria, Northeast Germany, and Southern Russia. You see, family, many Negroes today carry the names of Portuguese and Spanish Jews, and they don't even know it. In fact, the name Negro itself is a Spanish and Portuguese Jew surname. Yes, we are literally called by a Sephardic Israelite surname. And you can also find famous, well-known so-called African Americans with Sephardic surnames, and they don't even know it. For example, if you open your web browser and type in Sephardic surname dictionary and press enter, then you'll find a link called sephardim.com. Now click on the link, and then once you're on the web page, search the Sephardic dictionary for the name Sanders, as in Deion Sanders. And yes, as you can see, the name Sanders is a Sephardic Israelite name, and many don't even know it. And ironically, Coach Prime is headed to coach in the Pac-12. And not only do we find Coach Prime in the Sephardic Israelite database, we can find many other famous athletes in this database as well. So many people today are debating who is the greatest NBA basketball players of all time. Is it MJ, Michael Jordan, or LeBron James? Well, you know what, family? Don't even worry about it, because both LeBron and Jordan's last names in the Sephardic Israelite database, as well as your favorite Charles Barkley, who loves criticizing fellow black folks whenever he has an opportunity. Now note, Charles Barkley's last name is spelled differently in the dictionary. However, phonetically, it has the same pronunciation. Now that's just terrible, just straight terrible. That's just terrible.
Well, what about me? What about the Big Diesel?
Well, similar to Charles Barkley's name, you can also find a derivative of Shaquille O'Neal's name in the Sephardic Israelite surname database. Although his name is spelled differently, phonetically it sounds similar.
So you said I'm a Hebrews to Negroes?
Man, that's just terrible. That's just straight terrible, terrible. And once you realize Sephardic Jews were consistently described as black, using old references published in the early 1800s or older, and that many of these Jews come from the area near and around the city of Lachish, and that they would look identical to the picture of the Lachish Jews displayed at the British Museum. And also, once you discover that roughly 800,000 to 600,000 of these dark-skinned, woolly-haired Jews were persecuted and expelled in Spain and Portugal less than 10 years before the start of the transatlantic slave trade, sent to the exact locations in Africa where the transatlantic slave trade would begin less than 15 to 20 years later, and that the Manuelian laws which govern the transatlantic slave trade were specifically authorized that these Sephardic Jews be taken as slaves. You will understand why there are several so-called African Americans today with Sephardic, Israelite, Judean, House of Judah names. And so now that we have a better understanding of the physical description of the captive House of Judah in Babylon, which later was conquered by Persia, let's read the story of Esther, which describes the Most High Yah's deliverance of this swarthy, woolly-headed House of Judah people. We begin our story with the southern kingdom of the House of Judah, taken away into captivity by the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. Destined and prophesied to toil in the land of their captivity for 70 years. However, long before Judah would be freed, the Babylonians would be conquered by the Persians, and Judah would be persecuted by a descendant of Esau's son Amalek, and Seir, the Horite. The descendants of Esau, who had a perpetual hatred for their Judean brothers, planned and schemed Judah's demise. But Yahuwah, however, would have other plans for the princes of Judah, turning Esau's attempted curse into a blessing, which would lead to the rise of Judah through the acts of Aunt Esther and Uncle Mordecai. By the favor and grace of Yahuwah, Aunt Esther would go on to marry the king of Persia, gaining the grace and favor of the king, and placed into a position to protect her people, the house of Judah. As the following reference reads, and it reads, "Now in Shushan Palace there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So it came to pass, when the king's commandments and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan palace, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her things for purification, with such things as belonged to her and the 7 maidens, which were meet to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maidens unto the best place of the house of the women. Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. And so Esther would go on to marry King Ahasuerus and become queen of Persia, perfectly positioned by the Most High to make intercession on behalf of the house of Judah directly to the king when the time would arise. As the following reference reads, So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus into his house royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. And so once Esther was established queen of Persia, Mordecai would help protect her kingdom by foiling a plot to overthrow King Ahasuerus. As the following reference reads, In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, 2 of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth, and sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther, the queen. And Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore, they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king. Trouble in the kingdom of Persia was averted, or so they thought. For storm clouds were gathering on the horizon before the house of Judah. For Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, descendant of Amalek, also a descendant of Seir the Horite, would become enraged at Mordecai for not showing him reverence and bowing down in his presence. As the following reference reads, Now it came to pass when they spoke daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them. And they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand. And he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom. And their laws are diverse from all the people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it pleases the king, let it be written, that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand, and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given unto thee, the people also, to do with them as thy seemeth good to thee. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month. There was writing according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Osiris was it written, and sealed in the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into every king's province to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for prey. The copy of the writing for commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. Upon hearing this most egregious declaration of death, Mordecai was tormented and horrified, and was moved to lament for his people, as the following reference reads, when Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province whatsoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth with ashes. And so Queen Esther, upon hearing about the decree of death against the Jews, became very grieved, and reached out to Mordecai for understanding. And it reads, then called Esther for Hatak, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai, to know what it was and why it was. So Hatak went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews, to destroy them. Also, he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplication unto him, and to make requests before him for her people. Skipping ahead. And again Esther spake unto Hatak, and gave him commandment, and unto Mordecai, all the king's servants, and the people of the king's provinces do know, that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there was one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shalt be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther bade them return to Mordecai this answer. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way, and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Now it came to pass on the 3rd day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house.
What? 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 Oh my goodness. What?
Over against the king's house, the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house.
What?
And it was so when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court that she obtained favor in his sight.
What? Oh my goodness.
And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of his scepter. Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall even be given unto thee half of the kingdom. Then Esther answered, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther has said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. What is thy request? Even to have the kingdom, it shall be performed. Then answered Esther and said, My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for him, and I will do tomorrow as the king has said. Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself. And when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh, his wife. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and the servants of the king. And Haman said, moreover, Yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself. And tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then Zeresh his wife and all his friends unto him,
Let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet.
And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. On that night could not the king sleep. And he commanded to bring the book of records of the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who had sought to lay hand on the king Osiris. And the king said, What honor and dignity has been done unto Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, Nothing is done for him. And the king said, Who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outer court of the king's house to speak unto the king, to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for. And the king's servant said unto him, Behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, Let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, To whom would the king delighteth to honor more than to myself? And Haman answered to the king, For the man whom the king delighteth to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which the king uses to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. And let this apparel and the horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal whom the king delighteth to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor. Then the king said to Haman, Make haste, and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, Thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate. But Haman hasted to his house mourning and having his head covered. And Haman told Zeresh his wife and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, if Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him. And while they were yet talking to him, came the king's chamberlains, and hasted to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared.
What? Oh my goodness. What?
Yeah.
What? Oh my goodness.
And so the king and Haman came to banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine,
Oh my goodness.
what is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? And it shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom. Then Esther the queen answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, and I and my people to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not counter travail the king's damage. Then the king Osiris answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he, and where is he that durst presume in his heart to do so? And Esther said, the adversary and the enemy is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and queen. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Then saith the king, will he force the queen before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbonah, one of the king's chamberlains, said before the king, behold, the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden scepter towards Esther. And so Esther arose and stood before the king and said, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which are in all the king's provinces. Then the king Osiris said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Write you also for the Jews, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Then there were the king's scribes called at the time in the 3rd month, that is, the month Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and the deputies, and rulers of the provinces which are from India unto Ethiopia, and 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language. And he wrote in the name King Osiris, Osiris's name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries. Wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people in the province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people in the province which would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Upon one day in all the province of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. And so the post that rode upon the mules and the camels went out, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandments. And the decree was given at Shushan the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness, joy and honor. The Jews gathered themselves together in the cities throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people, and all the rulers of the province, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces, for this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. And thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And so the Jews would go on to defeat and spoil their enemies. And a decree was made to establish a perpetual day of remembrance to commemorate the day Yahuwah saved Israel from their enemies. As the following reference reads, it reads, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast pure, that is, the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device which he devised against the Jews should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged by the gallows. Wherefore they call these days pure, after the name pure. Therefore all the words of this letter, of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointment every year. And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed.
All right, so we absolutely have a reason to celebrate. The Most High have delivered Yisrael, Yasha'al, very many times, numerous times. And in this situation, the Most High delivered the Yahudim and turned the enemy of the Yahudim into food to be covered up.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All praises to the Almighty Yah. And it's magnificent to understand that the enemies of your people will be gobbled up. And the Most High has done it and will do it and we can count on it. You can bank on it. All praises to the Abba. Magnificent. I love this time of year, right before spring hits good, and right when we get into these celebrations, the reminders to Israel that the Most High will send a representative to stand and fight for us. And that is a wonderful, magnificent situation. All praises to the Abba. You got anything to add,
Khan, it's interesting that at the time of these events, many of our people had already returned back to the promised land. And we read about in this book how the decree went out in all the provinces. Judea would have been one of these provinces, and we know that our people, when they had returned, they were having issues with the people that were in the land that were attacking them while they were trying to rebuild the walls, and they had to fight with one arm on the sword as they're building the walls of the city. So it would be something to wonder what was going on in Jerusalem at the time of this decree. Were they celebrating this feast as well? And we know that they say that in many spots where the Yahudim were, they were celebrating. So but also I was looking, there's still a lot of Yahudim there in Persia. And if people who wonder about it, just simply Google Afro-Persians. That's how they would be labeled. You start looking for our people over there, Afro-Persians, and you're gonna see many of them. And just as Esther was described as ruddy, many of the people in our people there in Persia are ruddy, like they are here as well. So that was just kind of neat, to see as well. I yield there.
All praises, hallelujah. Praises to the Abba. Well, we have one more quick video we're going to get into. This video is going to rather short in time, about 20 minutes, right? Just over 20 minutes, some change. What it highlights is the historical resolution that the Most High have given to the children of Israel on this side, the GULLAH Wars. And this video is brought to us from History with No Chaser. And he says, real so-called Black history. All right. So we're gonna jump into this. This is gonna be good. I'm certain of it. But here we go.
The following program is rated TV MALV. It contains strong language and violence. It is intended only for mature audiences.
Blacks were happy, obedient slaves who sang spirituals and waited for the good Lord Jesus to come and set them free. They hardly ever rebelled against their horrific conditions because they knew that if they did, they would end up with nooses strung around their necks and their bloody decapitated heads mounted on poles along the major thoroughfares to set an example for any enslaved Africans who even contemplated doing the same. Wait a minute, that's not historically accurate. There's more to the history of so-called African Americans than our enslavement that's pathetically portrayed in movies such as Roots and 12 Years a Slave. For example, the Gullah Geechee people living along the Sea Islands in South Carolina and Georgia fled their enslavers and established numerous independent settlements throughout Florida. And I'm not talking about that dilapidated Spanish-controlled town called Gracia Real de Santa Teresa de Mose that revisionist historians and white supremacists falsely prop up as the place where Blacks fled to and lived happy and free. Were it not for the unprovoked, ungodly, and relentless pursuits of one of their greatest nemesis, Andrew Jackson, and Presidents Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and James Monroe, the Gullah Geechee people would have reestablished Florida as an independent black nation similar to Haiti.
How many slave rebellions have you heard about? I'm sure you've heard about Nat Turner. I've made videos about Denmark Vesey and John Brown. But something that's not mentioned enough is the fact that we've had hundreds of rebellions. Hundreds. And one rebellion that never gets talked about are the Gullah Wars. Our ancestors have never just accepted slavery and laid down. We have always fought back. Did they capture some of us? Yes. But when you're outmanned and outgunned, you're in a pretty tough position. You're in a tough position when you have this punk motherfucker pointing a gun at your 9-year-old daughter. His musket is in her face, and he's telling you, either get on this boat or I'll blow her head off. As a father, as a parent, you'll probably put those chains on and sit down on that boat. Now generations go by, and people are born into slavery. Once you are born into slavery, hell, you think you are a slave. In Frederick Douglass's biography, he spoke about how once slavery was over, many of those slaves wanted to go back into slavery because that's all they knew. When you can control a man's mind, when you can brainwash him, you don't have to worry about his actions. The Gullah Wars is the part of history that they tried to keep from us. They've tried to disguise this as the Indian Wars, and they've also used many other names as this. The Civil War did not free us. President Lincoln did not suddenly gain a conscience and thought to himself, you know what? This is wrong. We shouldn't treat these people like this. We freed us. We freed ourselves. And this was through the Gullah Wars. The Gullah Wars lasted from 1739 to 1858. These were military-minded runaway slaves. The myth that all slaves fled to the north, no. More than half of them went south. They went to Florida. They want to tell you that all the slaves went to the north because they're trying to throw you off from the rebellion. The rebellion that took place for over 100 years. The slaves would run away and head to Florida. This is where they built their own military. Whenever a runaway was captured, he would come back to the plantation and let everyone know what's going on. And if that runaway didn't get captured, he would tell the people in Florida where the plantation was. Give them information about the plantation, where they can hit them, where this is hidden, where that's hidden. Letting their comrades know where to go and what to do. See, the Gullah Wars were vicious, but they had cohesiveness. They had the mindset of either we'll take our freedom or we'll die trying. Hundreds of angry slaves going to town, plantation to plantation, overwhelming everything in their path. And they was killing everything. People were getting their heads chopped off. People were getting set on fire. And they didn't care. This included women and children. Because you have to understand this. Yes, that may be graphic, but now it was their turn to do the killing. It was their turn to do the raping. It was their turn to cut people open. It was their turn to cut heads off. They would ransack anything in their path and slaughter everybody. The first war began in 1739, called the Stono Rebellion. They went to a local gun shop and they took all the weapons. They killed the shop owner, and as they collected the weapons and they left, they all chanted, "Freedom, freedom, freedom, freedom." It was so loud, freedom, 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 freedom. It was so loud that it echoed throughout the town. Everybody heard it. As I've stated, the war lasted for over 100 years, but the most important one took place probably about a decade before the Civil War kicked off. These runaway warriors lit up the United States military. Yeah, you heard that right. The United States military got their asses handed to them. A little more than 400 escaped slaves defeated nearly 12,000 of the United States' finest. They led them off into the swamps and other areas. And since they knew the location, they were aware of the surroundings, the U.S. had no chance. Now, back in 1812, Spain was at war with the U.S. over territory in Florida. Now, Spain, they got word of what was going on. So they started giving weapons to the escaped slaves. They started giving them weapons and they started training them. And that army grew. The army grew fast. They were so aware of their surroundings out there in Florida. Every time there was a war, they lit their asses up. They had no chance. It was a one-sided battle. The U.S. was getting attacked from angles that they had no idea how to respond to. There was a very prominent town in Suwanee, Florida. In Suwanee, they didn't need white folks for anything. They didn't need any assistance.
Remarkable story. It's overlooked not just by filmmakers, it's not well known in popular culture, and in fact, it's been overlooked by historians of slavery, if you can believe it. In the early 18th century, two groups in particular fled the colonial South into Spanish Florida, into the Everglades. One of these groups were Seminoles, who were migrating from the various colonies, just trying to avoid white encroachment, basically, trying to move someplace that white colonists weren't. And the other group was runaway slaves, people who were fleeing and trying to create a free life for themselves. Both were welcome in Florida. And in fact, the Spanish crown offered runaway slaves their freedom if they would defend the land for the crown, for the Spanish. So a mixed society emerged in the Everglades of intermarriage, family intermingling between these runaway slaves and the Seminoles. And in fact, the first legally sanctioned Black free town in the North American continent was in the Spanish Florida Everglades. After the American Revolution, people living in the southern states didn't really like living that close to a large armed population of former slaves, particularly when they were in league with the local Native American nation, the large armed group of free Seminoles. And they knew that their own slaves felt free to run away and be harbored by this group. They knew that they were welcomed. And so from George Washington's administration on, there was questions of what do we do about the problem of the Florida Everglades. In 1818, this was James Monroe's administration, General Andrew Jackson actually moved into Florida, invaded it, not authorized to do so. He was actually pursuing justice against those who'd attacked Fort Scott in Georgia, but he did it anyway. He went into Florida, and he took the opportunity to execute some of the people who opposed him, and also to clean out some of the areas of former slaves and Seminoles, because he felt that this would make it better for annexation. The United States then soon actually bought Florida from the Spanish. When Jackson became president, he decided to make sure that the Black Seminole communities were moved out by force. So he pursued this in his policy, his larger policy of Indian removal. This led to the Second Seminole War, which was 1835 to 1842, and became the largest and costliest of the so-called Indian Wars. Because the two communities were tied together, that is, the former slaves and the Seminoles, when the Seminoles were attacked in the Seminole War, this led to an uprising of the former slaves. In April of 1836, Black Seminoles and their Indian allies moved together to create what was the largest slave rebellion in U.S. history. This wasn't just a matter of runaway slaves. More than 385 plantation slaves ran away from their masters and joined the Black Seminoles, essentially in laying waste to the Florida sugar mills, which were some of the most valuable areas, plantations in the whole continent.
They didn't need any assistance. They had their own farming, their own land, and they were very successful. Soon to be president, Andrew Jackson, who was general at the time, sent the troops into Suwanee, and they got annihilated. So they went into battle. They got their ass tore off, and as they retreated, since they were forced to retreat because they couldn't handle it, General Andrew Jackson spotted a section in the community where the women and children were hiding. Since all the men were fighting in the war, they hid all the women and children. This punk, bitch, motherfucker spotted them and slaughtered each and every one of them. They couldn't handle the men, so they slaughtered the women and children. And then they continued their retreat. But you see outrage today over these statues that we're trying to take down. See, Andrew Jackson is known as a hero. Andrew Jackson is on the $20 bill. All through school's curriculum, we were taught how people like Andrew Jackson were heroes. Fuck Andrew Jackson. And may he rest in peace. Now, the act of importing slaves was not stopped due to the kindness of their hearts. The United States stopped importing slaves because of the Gullah Army. That army kept growing and growing. Now, as I stated before, the people who were born into slavery, they had a different mindset. Now, people that they were bringing over thought totally different. So you got these people that you're bringing over. They don't think that they're slaves. Now, some of the people that were born into slavery, they fought and they wanted to get out. But a lot of people they were bringing over, they were riders and they wasn't having that shit. And this is what led to the Emancipation Proclamation. White towns had so much fear. Everyone was so afraid, and they put so much pressure on Lincoln. This is why they did that. They knew that they wasn't going to be able to contain this anymore. They saw how fast it was growing, and this widespread warfare was getting out of control. General Thomas Jessup said that the Negroes are running the war. General Thomas Jessup convinced and insisted that they set these people free. It was time. See, they always want to throw different names around. You got to be careful with these names and read behind the history of this stuff. They want to call these the Seminole Wars or the Indian Wars. Now, on December 8th, 1837, General Jessup wrote a letter to Andrew Jackson telling him, "You may be assured this is a Negro and not an Indian war. And if it be not speedily put down, the South will feel the effects of it and their slave population before the end of next season." We have never just accepted slavery and laid down. They had rebellions on ships, and we had no guns. They were fighting without guns. There was over 100 rebellions in the 1600s. There was over 100 rebellions in the 1700s. There was over 100 in the 1800s. The Gullah Wars lasted for more than 100 years. We've never just laid down and took that. We've always fought back. Do not disrespect the ancestors like that. I've seen dumbass quotes of people saying, "We are not our ancestors. We'll whoop y'all ass." Please don't disrespect the ancestors like that. They have never accepted that shit. Never. Some of you motherfuckers scared to even talk back to your boss. So cut the bullshit. Some of you motherfuckers never had guns pointed to you. Never had guns pointed at your kids and telling you either put these chains on or I'm gonna blow your daughter's head off. So cut the bullshit. I would highly recommend you go read The Invisible War. Another book, go read Florida's Negro War, Black Seminoles, and the Second Seminole War. And the third one, go check out The Unconquered. These three books will tell you everything you need to know about the Gullah Wars. Everything. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. And let me know what you think in the comment section.
All right. Harsh language, but I think we get the point. Gullah Geechee Wars was real deal, and they went tooth and nail. And my sentiments exactly to Andrew Jackson and his descendants. I share the same view, 100%. Any person that would target women and children, when you're getting your butt whooped by the men, by the warriors, you are absolutely a coward. So I don't even want a $20 bill. Don't even give it to me. I don't ever want to see another one, not another one. So, but praise to the Abba, for the deliverance in this particular situation, because there's no way that we can fight or stand against anybody in any circumstance if the Abba was not with us. And, we suffered the wrath of our Abba, of our Father, the Most High power of Israel, And that's how we fallen into these situations, into these circumstances. But even in that, he's given us places here and places there, victories, wins, and high regards for our people to do great things. So all praises to the Abba. I don't know what his brother, what his belief setup is, but he should be in the truth. And he really loved what he was learning, what he learned from this truth here, because it can definitely show you the real deal. You really want to know the real.
Come
That's what
and
it said.
understand, and have some understanding of why things have happened.
Indeed, the historical point of it. But I'm gonna rest there. Go ahead, Aki.
Con, like you, it's not the typical language that usually comes out of our mouth. But are you going to bed, baby? I love you. Rest well. But I had to think myself. When Moshe saw that Mizraite smiting his brother, his countryman, his kinsman, how did he feel? Did he feel like, I ought to be nice to this individual? Like, nah. Moshe might have not spoke what this brother spoke, but his actions and his love for his people caused him to action. So, I understand where the brother is coming from with that disgust, because it's a heinous act that shouldn't be celebrated and shouldn't be. Well, the truth should be taught in schools. I was unaware. I had heard that he had gone into Florida to fight, but I never knew that he had. But it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me one bit.
No.
Well, but I came away from this video wanting to know more, and I'm glad that the brother gave us some references to check out more information on the subject. Purim being a 2-day feast. Tomorrow evening, Abba willing, we might be able to take a look at one of these documentaries that the brother had mentioned, the Negro War in Florida. So, it's about a 50-minute video. Might be interesting to take another look, or take a deeper look at what our people were facing in this captivity, and I like how he highlighted that our people never laid down to slavery. It wasn't, something that we were just okay with. Now we were to be wise, you know what I mean? And but yeah, we have the opportunity to flee. Many of us did, and not only flee, set up our own towns and communities and fight the longest rebellion in American history. All praises to the Most High. You don't do that without Yahweh, by Hashem Hamashiach, Wamalak Yahweh Shah.
Indeed. All praises to the Most High, man. I love this time of year where we get to dive deep into these things and get some better understanding of the historical places where the Abba has delivered. Our power is so magnificent that
Hallelujah.
Indeed, hallelujah. Even in the text, he said, I will be a little sanctuary unto them in every place where I will scatter them. So even though we had to go and serve our punishment, I would never said, I'm through with y'all, nothing else to do with you. He set up this whole elaborate plan for us to get this information and return back to him. And he put it in our inward parts to return back to him. It's not because we're so smart and we figured it all out. It's because he put it in our inward parts to return back to him. So this is the power that we serve, a magnificent and amazing power. And I'm so thankful. We'll go ahead and close it on out. Praises to the Abba for another Feast of Purim. However you want to pronounce it is fine. But this is why we do these things. We do this not for nothing. We do this for a good reason. Uh, Romans chapter 10 and verse 1. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to Ha'abah for Israel is that they might be saved. We want to see our people saved. We want to see our people get to the other side. We want to see our people restored and back to redemption. How are we going to do it? First of all, we're going to keep the faith, the belief in Yahweh Shah HaMashiach, or Malak, the Messiah and King. Also, Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. It is so very important to understand that in the conclusion of the whole matter, we are to fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. At the end of the day, when it is all said and done, all the dust is settled and all the smoke is cleared, we will be judged on whether we have feared the Most High and kept his commandments. Why? Because this is the whole duty of man. I am Ya'akazaki Yahu, joined by my most esteemed Agak Kenaniah, giving all praises, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahweh, Bashem, Hamashiach, Wamalak, Yahweh Shah, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered to the four quarters of the earth. I say, Shalom wa Baruchim, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait to the day when the Most High brings us back together, and we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation, under the Most High Power, under one covenant, back in our own land with a heart of flesh and no more a heart of stone, with our enemies, our adversaries, and all those who hate us under our feet. Until that day come, shalom, family, and have a wonderful feast of Purim.
Shalom, Mishpachah.
All praises to the Abba. Praise you, Abba Yah. Kwam Yasha'Allah.
Kwam Yasharallah.
Kwam Yasha'Allah.
Kwam Yasharallah.
Kwam Yasha'Allah.
Kwam Yasharallah.
And Barak Hashem Yahweh.